experience.
In war, there is
Okay.
no fair games.
That's right. I'm Mike Makovsky. I'm the president here at GINSA. Welcome today to talk about the update of Israel's attack on Iran. We had our first webinar on Friday. We brought back almost everybody from that group. We got General Norkin, a GINSA Distinguished Fellow, who's the previous Israeli Air Force commander, General Yaakov Amidror, also a distinguished fellow, GINSA, as a former national security advisor to Netanyahu, and John Hanna, the Randy and Charles Wax Senior Fellow. Thank you all for joining. I know we have a nice crowd. General Norkin, I'm going to go to you because, like you did on Friday, why don't you give us some insights on the operational things before I ask? I know you have a presentation you want to give, so why don't you start and then could follow up with some specific questions, and then I'll go to General Amidror. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike. As we briefed in our last webinar Friday night, the mission for the Air Force was first of all to get all the commanders and the headquarters at the first sortie, and then to attack most of the ballistic missiles, the launchers, and we can see from day to day that they can launch less missiles toward Israel. Besides that, we need to achieve air superiority. And as the Prime Minister just mentioned in his conference an hour ago, and the IDF also mentioned it yesterday, today, the Israeli Air Force can fly anywhere above Iran. And the threat is a minimal threat. So we can fly with our UAVs and our F-16, F-15, F-35 above Iran, and we can achieve our goals with freedom of action at the Iranian airspace. For Air Force to have air superiority, it's the most important thing, not just for the Air Force, for the military. Once you are taking off all the air defense systems, the enemy, the Iranian regime, the Iranian military feel like a naked person because he cannot defend himself. And we are going to choose when and where we are going to act, and the Israel Air Force the last 4 days act around the day, 24 hours. Every hour there is an Israeli airplane that do some mission above the Iranian airspace. And I think that the best clip that might present it.
General, sorry to interrupt. Before you do that, please, I'm sorry to interrupt, but would you say, so this operation began Thursday night American time, early Friday morning Israel and Iran time. So when because you were involved in planning this has been worked on for years. Would you say Israel achieved this air superiority on time or earlier than you would have expected?
I think that it's much earlier than I expected. And of course, it's based on a very good intelligence that the Air Force get for the intel community in Israel, and of course from the American support. And once you got the intelligence, we need to plan and we need to do it. And I think that the results are much better than we can expect. Okay. So I would like to share a short clip. Let me do it, and then we can speak about it. So you see here Iranian F-14, an American airplane that 50 years ago they bought from the United States, and those F-14 are not a real threat, but they are still a threat. And the picture is from an Israeli UAV sensor. So our UAVs, the Israeli UAVs, they are flying above the Iranian air bases, and they destroy the airplanes one by one. As you can see here, this is the first one, for example, the second one, and they destroy all of them. They destroy the Iranian Air Force. So you can destroy, of course, the airplanes by F-16 or by F-15, but UAVs, 2,000 kilometers from Israel, flying and doing missions, it's like a dream that come true. And I think that once we achieve this freedom of action, we can keep going, keep moving forward with our plans and achieve our goals and destroy all the military capabilities, industrial capabilities that related to the ballistic missile capabilities, and of course, the nuclear chain, all the chain of capabilities of the military nuclear program. So this is the current situation. The second important, very important mission is to defend the Israeli population. Every night, every day, the Iranian launch and toward Israel tens of ballistic missiles. Unfortunately, in the last 24 hours, we lost 8 citizens, and the damage is quite huge damage. Once the half-ton warhead hit the house, the whole street got a real damage, but the percentage of the intercepts are quite high. And this is the second time I would like to appreciate the American support with the THAAD system, and of course the American Navy that support us also with his capabilities. And till now, no drone or suicide UAVs or cruise missiles that the Iranian launch hit a target in Israel because of the air defense that the American pilots intercept some of them above Iraq, and all the others been intercepted by the Israeli Air Force in the border. So there are two main missions for the Air Force in those current days. First of all, to destroy more and more targets in Iran and to defend the state of Israel.
Let me ask you on the, they're obviously connected, but you mentioned the ballistic missiles. So there've been reports today, or last night, I don't know, that Israel has knocked out about a third of the ballistic missile launchers. Now, how many, I thought they said 120, but how many launchers do you think roughly Iran had before this war, and how much do you assess what percentage has been knocked out and destroyed by Israel?
Well, I got no precise number, and I don't want to say any wrong answer, but some of them are launched by from underground facilities. Some of them have been launched from tracks, very long and big tracks. So we need to destroy those launchers. We need to destroy the storage. Once we hit the storage of the ballistic missile, you can hit more than one. We need to attack the headquarters of the ballistic command. We need to attack and to destroy all the communication system. So we are working on all the wide spectrum of the ballistic capabilities to avoid or to have less and less damage in Israel. And once they are launching only, let's say, the last wave of missiles 2 hours ago, they launched only 10 compared to 100 in the first time. So once they are launching 10, the air defense systems, it's much easier for them. So we need to work very hard on those two vectors to defend the state of Israel and to keep destroying all the targets in Iran.
So you think the attacks on Israeli civilian centers, homes, and so on, you think they're going to you expect that they will lessen, they will go down?
I think that we are going to reduce the amount of ballistic missiles that might hit Israel in the next few days. Yes.
By the way,
but it's a challenge mission because it's very long distance. It's very hard to get the intel. There are moving targets. They're hiding. But I think that we are going to see less ballistic missiles from day to day.
Okay, and I think just so the audience understands, the Israeli Air Force is in charge, not only.
In Israel, as we always say, in Israel there is only one aviation, and there is no Navy aviation, Army aviation. There is only the Air Force, and the Air Force is also in charge for the air defense.
Right.
Not like the American system.
Right.
The air defense is not under the Army. The air defense is under the Air Force. So the Air Force is in charge for both missions.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Thank you, General. All right, General George, let me ask you, there's a lot to ask, of course, but let me start with something that's been in the U.S. press a lot today and last night. And this is this report, and then I want to get broader, but it gets to the broader question that there have been reports that Israel asked the United States or talked to the United States about that they wanted to attack and assassinate, kill the supreme leader, Khamenei, and that Trump said, don't do it. And Bibi, according to reports, didn't confirm or deny it, but then he also said there might be some value in doing that. And I wanted to get your thoughts. I don't know if you have any insight or whether that report is true and how you see, is this evolving into also not just a nuclear attack on the nuclear program, but about how but also to destroy the regime, and whether you think that's a good idea or not.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. It was asked here in Israel as well. And I don't know if there was any dialogue about it between America and Israel. The Prime Minister's office denied, but let's speak about the question itself. Look, there are occasions in which to get rid of the leader is a very important action to deny the capabilities of the organization or the state. Nasrallah is a good example. Hezbollah without Nasrallah is not the same Hezbollah. And no one can enter to his shoes. It will be another shoes, different, much, much less influential than the shoes of Nasrallah. It was true about Qasem Soleimani as well. I'm not sure that this is true about Khamenei. Around Khamenei, there is a big group of people that can take the responsibility and make decisions. One of them is his son. Will he be nominated? I don't know. Do they have clear idea who might take his position if he will be eliminated? I don't know, but probably people which are in the family and in the decision making, and Khamenei himself is a very old guy, might go naturally tomorrow morning. So I think that will not change the situation, but it might be an environment based on the success of Israel to shake the whole system in Iran, that you need something, something else that will make the difference. In this occasion, in spite of the fact that probably they have substitute people that were ready to be substituted and they known as those who might be the substitute to Khamenei, I think that in some occasions when the whole system is under pressure and very shaky, that taking or knocking out the leader might be a wise decision. So I think here it's a questionable decision. I'm not sure that this is the right time to do it, but if based on the intelligence, they will see that the whole system is under pressure and maybe collapse with another push, that might be the push.
Okay. Do you see though, Netanyahu gave this interview with Bret Baier here on Fox News. It's clearly been, while the focus, the purpose of this attack is the nuclear program, clearly, and also the ballistic missile threat, and destroying as much of that as possible. Obviously, the Israelis have now killed a lot of senior officials, intelligence and military. There was also this attack, I think today, which people saw, and we saw the video of it, against the broadcasting, the Iran state TV. And I guess the question is Israel, by doing that, is it just to try to confuse the enemy? Or is there also, you think, a larger purpose that they're trying not necessarily to engineer regime collapse, but at least do what it can to weaken the regime? And that goes also about hitting these refineries, which also puts more pressure on the economy and the people. What do you
look? The issue of eliminating the military guys is not connected to the regime change. Right. It is about decision makers within the military system. It's a combined system, the Revolutionary Guard and the army, the regular army, and that about making the decision makers in putting them in confusion and the whole system to take out of a balance, because we wanted to use this opportunity and to make more operations to clean the area to Tehran, and it was a successful operation. About the other issue, look, for regime change, you need two sides. You need to make the regime very weak, and you need on the other side an opposition. We can make the regime very weak. We can kill Khamenei, to take others, and to bomb the television, so on and so forth, symbols of the regime. But we cannot build an opposition. Right. And if the opposition is very weak or does not exist, and the regime still can take all the measures that had been taken in the past to neutralize any sign of opposition, the fact that there is no any strong opposition in Iran or outside Iran. Khomeini was outside Iran, but he was accepted as a leader by all the opposition friction in outside and inside Iran. It's not the case. There is no opposition, there is no leadership, there is no leader. So we can make the regime much weaker. We cannot produce the alternative.
Yeah. And let me ask you, before I go back to General Norkin, how do you assess where Israel is after these, was it Friday, Saturday, Sunday? So day 4, I guess. How do you assess, where I mean is assess, not talking about all the operational, but just broadly what you would have liked to have achieved and what's been achieved so far?
Are you asking me or Amidor?
Oh, no, I was asking General Amidor first, and then I was going to go to General Norkin. Sorry.
As was explained, I think, by General Norkin, we have some goals. The first one is the nuclear. We made many successful attacks on the facilities of belongs to the project. We have some other places that we have to destroy. It is in the list, and we will continue to do it. I think that more important than that is the elimination of the scientists, because the next stage that the Iranians have to do is to weaponize what they have, the enriched uranium. For that, you need the specialists who know how to do it. And we took many of them, at least 10, and we will try to do more like that. And we bombed the alternative to the archive that we brought to Israel. And we don't know now after what we took from the archive and what was remain in Iran and what was destroyed by our Air Force. I think it was today or yesterday. In the whole group of those who are responsible for the future efforts of the Iranians to build the bomb, how much knowledge they lost between the archive and the scientists. And it might be the most obstacle for renewing immediately the project. This is kind of a BDA that we have to learn and to see and to assess. It will take time, but this is a bottleneck that maybe during which we can slow the Iranian more than what was achieved on the facilities of the enrichment, like Natanz and the other facility in Isfahan. In Isfahan, no, Fordo we didn't touch it. I'm speaking about Isfahan and Natanz. So, and Fordo, of course, is somehow we have to neutralize. Us or the Americans, I don't know. But I think that the soft knowledge of the scientists and the archive is now a problem that might doesn't allow the Iranians to go immediately to renew the project, and leave alone any agreement and so on and so forth that might be achieved. Of course, it will be negotiations based on the achievements of the IDF and mainly the Air Force. Up till now, the American card will be much better than before the war. About the production of the missiles, I think that we are in a very good situation. We blow many of the infrastructures that they had. We continue to do it. They had a huge basis of infrastructure, so it's a lot of work to destroy. About launchers, which is the bottleneck of the whole system, as was described, today someone in Israel said that we destroy a third of it, but I don't know if it's true or not. I don't have numbers, and I don't want to say something that I'm not sure about. But I believe that a third of their capacity to launch is something that could be achieved in those 4 days. Remember, we are only 4 days in the war. It's not after 4 months or 40 days. It's only 4 days. I think that third is a good guess about that. But we are working on other infrastructure facilities of the Iranians to weakening their whole military basis. And the list of targets is giving the Air Force, I don't know, another month to work with the very easy way. And remember, all the time we are collecting more intelligence, and the fact that we are flying over Iran day and night give us another capabilities to collect more intelligence and to integrate it to the intelligence that we had before the war. And together, I believe that we will be in a better position to say after a few days, and now it's 4 days, after day 14, how much was achieved.
John, if you could bear with me 1 more minute. I want to ask General Norkin a question, and then I appreciate your patience, and I apologize. I don't want you to... General Norkin, I want to bring up something. It's maybe a little less, and I want to get back to Fordow with everybody and where we're going with this war. But one thing that has popped up today, and I had some people have asked, and there's a question that's been around is, okay, the assumption is with Fordow, you need the 30,000 bomb bunker busters, which requires either the B-2 or the B-52. Israel doesn't have that, and I may add, 11 years ago, I wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, said, give Israel B-52s and the MOPS. But, my understanding, and we've written about this, I think John and I did, it was clear to us, at least for a while now, Israel's not thinking about B-2s. They're not thinking about MOPS. You don't have them. America's not going to give them. We only have about 18 or 19 operational B-2s. We're not going to give them to Israel. So then periodically you have people say, well, why don't we lend Israel or lease Israel the B-2s and let them drop it? Now, I think I'd like to address this publicly because I've talked about this privately. Could you please explain if tomorrow President Trump says to Netanyahu, I'm going to loan you B-2 or one or two B-2s, and I'm going to give you the MOPS you need, and you take care of this business. How realistic, assuming that, and I don't, say he would do that, which I don't see, how realistic, practically, operationally, is that for Israel? With how long would it take for Israeli pilots to learn how to fly these? Would you have to do something to the planes to make them more connect to other Israeli electronics? Could you just address this issue, because this keeps popping up, including today?
Yeah. As you know, Mike, you asked me these questions more than once.
I know.
And the answer is always,
and
the answer is always the same answer.
Good.
It won't be the right thing to do, because it will to learn the airplane for any pilot, it will take months, and the Israeli Air Force, they are not.
It'll take months, you said? Months?
Yeah, months, and to the Israeli Air Force, the Air Forces, the runways, they are not planned to operate such huge airplanes. We build our bases for the F-15, F-16, F-35, not for the strategic bombers. But we know that those airplanes can fly with us. It's much easier. They can fly in our formations. We already did it. We flew together. And once there is a decision, then it might be quite easy to do a formation of Israeli Air Force and the American Air Force together that can fly anywhere in Iran. So there is no need to do all those plans to bring the airplanes to Israel, just a very short decision to put the ball in the basket.
Okay.
The ball is the bomb that you spoke about, and the basket is Fordow. So this is the decision that we need to take, to put the ball in the basket from the American Air Force, and I think that it might be one of the important parameters for how we should bring back the Iranians to the negotiation table.
Okay, I know I've asked you that. Thank you for addressing it, but it keeps popping up. People keep raising on podcasts or in op-eds, and I think, but I'm glad you've addressed that, obviously, extremely authoritatively. My colleague John. Okay, so now tell me, let's just pick up on that. Obviously, like the Wall Street Journal had an editorial today, I think it was today, that President Trump should agree to, as General Norkin said, put the ball in the basket, deploy, agree to order a couple of our B-52s or whatever to work with the Israelis and take care of Fordow. How do you see this? And President Trump is saying all sorts of things right now. He talks about having negotiations, but then he says, well, sometimes you have to fight this out. How do you see this going on?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Listen, on the one hand, I think, the president has, despite the fact that he was in a negotiation when Israel attacked, he came out very quickly and supported it. He's been quite supportive, I think, said the operation was excellent, would only strengthen his hand in any negotiation to get to a good deal with the Iranians. As far as I can tell, he's really done nothing to pressure Israel to end this campaign prematurely, despite the fact I'm sure there's a lot of people internationally who are telling him that we need to find a way to de-escalate very quickly, not to mention within his own political base. Anybody that follows the discussion between the MAGA people on X or any other social media knows there is now a substantial and growing faction of people who are convinced that what's happening in the Middle East is none of America's business and that it could be a threat to President Trump's presidency if he was to get involved. And he's, for the moment, having none of that talk. He continues on his constant line that preventing a nuclear weapon in Iran is absolutely an essential, vital interest of the United States. As General Norkin said, as we did throughout 2024, President Trump and the United States are actively engaged in the defense of Israel, both through our THAAD systems in Israel, as well as through our Aegis systems aboard those naval destroyers out in the Mediterranean. Very important. I think Ambassador Huckabee was exactly right to remind Americans that I think he said there's 700,000 American citizens in Israel. We're not just defending some foreign country, we're defending one of the largest populations of American citizens outside the continental United States. This is absolutely in our vital interest. And the president has told the Iranians pretty explicitly once they started threatening that they were going to start attacking potentially American bases, that if they attack American troops or interests in the region, then the full wrath of the American military will come down on them. I think they've been testing that a little bit, particularly in Iraq. So we'll have to see what happens. But I think that's a very important message that he's sending. Now, the big question, as you say, is whether we're going to get involved directly to actually lend our hand to delivering what would in effect be the coup de grace against this Iranian nuclear program by destroying Fordow, by using those bunker busting huge bombs that we have together with those strategic bomber platforms that only we possess to actually finish the job against these Iranian enrichment sites and really the long pole in the tent of the Iranian nuclear weapons program. Israel has completely set the table on that. As General Norkin says, we now have control of the skies. We dominate the skies. A couple of B-2 stealth bombers loaded up with the MOPS. I think protected by Israeli Air Force fighter jets escorted in, I think would have easy work of this, given what Israel has done against Iran's strategic air defenses. And, I think not only would, by doing that, the United States would, of course, be advancing a strategic goal of ours, 25 years old at least, that destroying the Iranian nuclear weapon program, setting it back significantly, is an absolutely vital strategic interest of the United States. And now we have a chance, thanks to what Israel has done over the last several days, to actually achieve that and achieve it at a very acceptable cost, because there's really no defenses that would oppose our ability to come in and deliver this crushing blow against Iran. But beyond simply, achieving this huge strategic goal of knocking out or setting back Iran's nuclear weapons program in as decisive a manner as we possibly can, I think it would also have broader strategic implications. I think it would have a calming effect, frankly. I think to the extent that the United States has appeared to say, this is Israel's fight, it's excellent, it's going to strengthen our hand in negotiations, but we're not involved. I think it is a little bit provocative to the Iranians. They believe they've got lots and lots of free shots at the Israelis. They can throw everything they want at them without risking that nightmare scenario of America being involved in this fight against them and all the risks that that would impose on Iran. And I think a more active American position would actually bring Iran the full realization of the full weight that of what it faces here now, that all the marbles could be in play now, that the entire regime could be at risk once America is actively engaged in this. So I think it would have a salutary effect on the Iranians. It might be that thing that finally brings the supreme leader to the same realization as his predecessor reached in the late 1980s, after the United States accidentally shot down that Iranian civilian airliner, and he decided that he couldn't risk the United States coming full force into the Iran-Iraq war on Iraq's side, and he drank the poison chalice. You can't guarantee it, but I think if we're going to bring them to that point where they really throw up their hands, decide they need to get back into negotiation, end these hostilities, and figure out the best deal they can possibly get, I think that kind of active American, decisive American engagement could actually be quite useful now. And as we said, the Israeli Air Force has really set the table for the United States to be part of what I think is going to turn out to be one of history's great and important military campaigns.
Yeah. It'd be an amazing thing for this to happen without the U.S. involvement, I think. And as we've talked about many times, John, I think be a signal to the Chinese of real fecklessness, and then our close allies, whether in the Middle East or in Asia, would look at this and say, we can't depend on the United States. Let me ask you, General Amidjor, where are we going? Like, how does this end? How much does Israel need to destroy of Iran's military and its nuclear program? And then they say, okay, we've done enough, Dayenu. Oh, General, we can't hear you. You're muted.
I don't think that there is a clear answer to the question. The more that we will destroy, the better.
Yeah.
And now you have to calculate it not just as isolated phenomena, but what is the question between those achievements and what's going on inside Iran? What is the connection between these achievements and the readiness of Iran to negotiate with the United States of America? And so only if you have all the three issues together, you understand, because if you say, okay, I achieved a lot, but what I see is that a little bit more push and the Iranians will be ready to capitulate during the negotiation with the Americans. In spite the fact that you almost finish all the targets that you have in the list, continue to attack, because that will bring them to the negotiations in much better position from our point of view. Or if you look at what happened now in Iran, and you say, guys, if we continue to make some efforts and to show the Iranians the regime is collapsing, the regime change will be achieved because there is no opposition, as I said, but the people might ignite a revolution. Without an organized opposition, the people, the mass will. So it very much depends about the assessment of the situation. This is why I don't like all those who are preaching us all the time. What will happen in the day after, the day after, the day after? Look, the Americans decided about the day after in Yalta, after more than 2 years of war. Let's see what's going on in Iran and push for both destroying the nuclear capacity, the military production capabilities, and try to achieve change in the regime, in spite the fact that we are not organizing an opposition inside Iran now.
Okay. General Norkin, let me ask you a couple quick questions. One is just as a pilot, is this, how taxing is this? This is all these sorties, long distances, the Air Force equipped, to continue this for a while, and they have the munitions to do so, and the pilots are, it's not too taxing for them.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a very good question because usually Israel is not the state of Israel, the IDF, we are not managing wars in the distance of 2,000 kilometers.
Right.
We never did it. So each sortie, it's like 4 to 5 hours in the cockpit. And we used to sit in the cockpit 1.5 hours and to do 5 sorties per day. But now the pilots are doing between 1 to 2 sorties per day, but they are quite long one, most of them with air refueling. So to decide and to plan which targets we should attack every day, every hour, very important decisions because you cannot be there too many times around the day. So you need to choose the right targets per day. And those targets supposed to support the whole campaign. People ask me, why did we attack the Iranian TV station? We did it 4 hours ago.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that for each target, there is a plan behind, a reason behind, and it should be like a puzzle to support the whole campaign. But we cannot do it for months. I think that the right thing to do is to, like the Prime Minister already mentioned in the beginning, we should do it in 2 weeks.
Let me ask you one more thing, and then I want to go back to John. How do you, one of the things John and I were talking about earlier was, and also my colleague Blaze, is this IAEA report. And it suggests that we don't really know, that we can't, the IAEA, inspectors couldn't figure out where some of these centrifuges came from. They weren't sure about where some of the enriched uranium was. In other words, they were questioning whether there was some facility or facilities that at least the IAEA was not familiar with. And I guess one of the issues when you do these kind of things is, what do you don't know? And then how do you find that kind of thing out? And given the distance, it makes it more challenging, even though Israel has, shown a tremendous intelligence penetration of Iran. But I don't know. I just wanted to ask you that, how you think about that as a commander.
There is a lot of unknown. Although we know a lot, there is always unknown. There is unknown in the cockpit, there is unknown in the squadron, there is unknown in the Air Force, at the IDF, and also at the strategic level. And you need to manage yourself with, let's say, risk management.
Yeah.
How you're acting with a level of unknown. And we should understand that the Iranians, they are not Hamas. And they will try to intercept Israeli airplanes. They will try to hide some of the air defense systems inside the cities, like they already did. So at the tactical level, we should be aware that they are trying to intercept us. And the strategic level, we should understand that we are fighting against a nation, not against a terror organization, and a different strategic plan. We didn't fight against nations for many years. We used to fight against Hezbollah, against Hamas, against the Islamic Jihad. The last time we did it against a nation, it was 1973. So the unknown, there is an unknown area, the whole level of from the tactical to the strategical level.
Okay. John, let me ask you, and first of all, feel free to raise something that I'm not asking. So just address it. But I guess one of the other issues that we've seen in the press in the last day or two is, and you know, the Wall Street Journal had an article today, short article, and it seemed to affect the oil market. The Iranians are eager to have negotiations. And, you know, you keep hearing Trump saying, yeah, they got to make a deal. I don't know. How do you assess all that? Is that something you think that's going to happen? You know, how do you assess the U.S. position on that also? John?
Oh, sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
Can you just repeat the question quick?
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, sorry. No, I just want to see. There've been reports about whether it affected the oil market today and thus the stock market, because the report that the Iranians apparently are eager for some sort of deal, a cessation of hostilities, because they're obviously getting, you know, beat up pretty bad, and I guess the regime is worried about itself. But how do you assess all that and how the U.S. is saying things? Trump is saying things that there needs to be a deal, but is he just saying that, or is he really going to push for that in a strong way? Because right now it looks like the Iranians are more keen on this right now than the Israelis are.
Yeah, there's no question that the Iranians obviously want this to stop. They know how bad their situation is. The question is, what are they prepared to do to give up and surrender their nuclear program? They weren't before these attacks. Have they given any sign yet that they're finally willing, at a minimum, to dismantle their entire enrichment program? As far as I'm aware, not. The Wall Street Journal didn't report anything about that other than they'd like an end to hostilities and some kind of return to what the negotiation was last Thursday or Wednesday before these attacks started. So until you see some dramatic change in the Iranian position on the core question of whether or not they're going to be able to maintain any kind of enrichment capability inside of Iran, I don't see any reason why Israel would stop this or why the United States would agree to try and get Israel to stop its operations. I do think it's important for the United States and Israel, if on the off chance that the Iranians do decide to start suggesting they'll change their position if hostilities end, that we have a good agreement with Israel on what would need to happen. What would the Iranians need to show and demonstrate as a sign of good faith that their position has really changed and there's a real chance now for a serious negotiation to end the threat of their nuclear program. I do think, I think the president remains, I think one of the reasons he hasn't entered the fray and why he's been so eager to kind of suggest this is Israel's thing. It's great, it's supportive, but it's all about me getting back to a negotiation. I'm not really involved in doing anything except helping to defend American interests inside of Israel and in the region. I think because he does fashion himself as this guy kind of hanging, he wants to maintain a position as the guy above the fray who's going to be the deal maker at the right moment when enough fighting has occurred. He's going to swoop in and he's going to, end hostilities and make peace in the Middle East. And he sees this as somehow in conflict with an active American role in actually bringing serious military pressure to bear on the Iranians and actually expediting and accelerating their decision to surrender their nuclear program in some kind of last-ditch effort to save the regime and get a deal. So yeah, I think that's kind of where the president is right now. I so far don't see any signs that the Iranians are serious about actually changing their position in the negotiations. And until you get that, I don't see why Israel would stop or why the Americans would try and force Israel to stop at this point. But I do think it's important that there are a lot of conversations happening about if the Iranians do surprise us, if Khamenei decides he's got to end this somehow and switch his position, that we're in a pretty good agreement with Israel about what that would look like.
I see there's a question, I guess it's really for General Norkin. Charles Moore, General Moore had a question. If they have air superiority, why not just give them the GBU-57 and push them out of the back of a C-17? Because as far as I understand, you need a B-52 or B-2 or like a C-17, but that would just be to drop it out.
Yeah.
You can't really fire it, but I never see that as being much discussion on.
We are not flying the C-17 in Israel. We are flying the C-130.
Oh.
So maybe we can do it with the C-130. I don't know, but let me say, and I'd like to learn what General Amidor might think about it, and maybe John. I think that if President Trump is willing to bring a peace to the Middle East, it will be much easier for him to do it if the American military will take some actions in Iran and project power in Iran. And then after that, to bring all the leaders to the same table and to bring a peace to the Middle East, it might be much easier for him. So not just from the, let's say, from the tactical level, also from the strategic level, America should, let's say, end this war by projecting power.
If I may say something about it, I think, and you know that this is my philosophy for a long time, we should not advise the American what is the best for America. They elected the president. They have very sophisticated decision-making systems. The Americans should make their decision about what is the best for America. If there is any technical solution to the question of how to use the big bombs by Israel, that should be provided and agreed between the experts. But about bringing America to the war, let's give the Americans to decide.
Okay. All right. Any final thoughts before we end by anybody? Anyone have anything they want to say we didn't address? Please,
I think this
gentlemen.
is the right time to, I think that those declarations that I already did and General Amidor, it's a good time to summarize this webinar and to
let the Americans to decide.
And yes, and let the decision maker take decisions.
Anybody else? John, do you have anything else? Okay.
Well, just again, the question of war goals and this question of ending this regime. I mean, whether or not it's a war goal, I mean, everybody, has a sense that this regime, is fragile, has real lack of internal legitimacy, that even if you were to get to a deal with this regime in place, what it would require in terms of intrusive verifications and intense monitoring, it's just hard to believe that you ever can get there with this regime in place. And to the extent that we're weakening the regime now, we can't organize the opposition, although I think we ought to, there's a lot we can do to support an opposition inside of Iran, and they need support. But we can't make it for them. We've seen the Shah's son has appealed to the Iranian people to rise up and take their fate into their hands, that this government has imposed this war on them and only brought them misery, and that's certainly true. And Elon Musk has put Starlink up to try and help the Iranian people better be able to communicate with themselves internally. Israel's smashing some of the arms of regime oppression. Whether or not it's a war goal, things could happen very, very quickly. It's not necessarily the case that we'd have more friendly people come into power there, and there could be a level of chaos, and we ought to be at least thinking about what could come next if, in fact, something there's a major discontinuity internally inside of Iran, and whether there are things we can do at the margins to try and assist things moving in a more positive direction, and investing a little bit of resources in doing that seems to me to make some sense. And the only other thing is that this danger of what we don't know, of what the Iranians could do to sneak out materials and equipment and advanced centrifuges to covert sites. It's just going to be such an important follow-up to any military campaign that we have the kind of intelligence and surveillance and reconnaissance that's now available to us in this situation to keep both the United States and Israel to invest massively in understanding what the Iranians are trying to do now in this fairly chaotic new situation, because the last thing we want is to get in any way, shape, or form surprised by, after this tremendous military campaign, that they suddenly surprise us with having produced a couple of crude nuclear weapons.
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much, everybody. This war, as General Norkin suggested, is going to go on a little, maybe at least a couple of weeks, so we'll have more time to talk. Please, want to thank our guests, General Norkin, General Ami George, John Hanna, and please look out for emails from us about this.
Quiet night for the Israelis. Quiet night for the Israelis.
Yes,
Amen.
we wish you a quiet night with no sirens and no ballistic missile attacks. So, amen to that. And we wish you stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.